because what I see happening is a lot of people will fall in love with the idea of a country, or they will have a list of places where they could go that are really probably deeply unsuitable for them, but they're trying, you get into this idea of like, well, I know about this, so I'm going to try to make it work. And I'm like, you kind of need to start with yourself a little bit and define what you need, and then you need to question your assumptions ruthlessly.
I'm Larry Cornett, and this is Invincible Solopreneurs. Well, welcome to the show, Casey. It's good to have you here.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Larry.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun and relevant discussion. I've been talking with a lot of people lately about moving outside the U.S., moving to Europe, setting up a new life there, and the trials and tribulations of that. It's exciting, but it also has a lot of challenges. And you've been through it, and you have a lot of lessons that you've learned that I think are going to be super valuable for the folks listening.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, it's been, I've been here 2.5 years now in Portugal after living most of my life in Texas. So it's been a big adjustment. I've learned a lot. And I've also watched my 2 young adult kids make their way, one to Sweden and one to the Netherlands. So I've kind of had a window into that process for them as well.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because every country is unique. So maybe we could start with a little bit about your background. Where you were living before this and the kind of work you were doing, and then the decision that led to all this.
Well, I was living in Austin, and since 2010, I had been working full time as a freelance content marketing creator and strategist. So I already had a business that was portable and not location dependent. And it was about 2012 when I was working with a company that did elder care. I was working on marketing for them, and there's a tool called the Genworth Care Calculator that anybody can look up online, and it will tell you, like right down to the city, what the projected elder care costs are for your region,
Interesting.
like
Wow.
30, 40, 50 years in the future, based on past data and economic
Right.
forecasts. And I remember looking at that and thinking, oh no,
I'm
I
afraid to
can't
even
do
look.
this. Yeah, it was a wake up call for me, and I had always kind of wanted to live outside the U.S. I thought, well, after the kids are grown, but seeing that and knowing what the many older people in my family had been through to try to
Right.
access elder
Yeah.
care that I frankly thought was subpar, I was like, I need to look at some other options. And that's when I started what ended up being almost 10 years of research
Wow.
on
Okay.
different
Yeah.
options. I mean, not full time, but when I had a
Sure.
breather,
Yeah.
when I had a
Yeah.
moment,
So you didn't
that's what I
rush
was
it. You
doing.
didn't rush it. That's good.
No, no. So that's how I got started with that.
And so you've been doing a lot of your own kind of consulting and freelance work for a number of years in really technical space, cybersecurity, fintech, and all that. And
Yeah.
doing that in the US and now transitioning out of the US. And so, what's that been like trying to continue to operate your business and probably spin up new aspects of your business while you're in Portugal? I know you've had some interesting experiences setting up a business there.
Yeah, it's different. I had to wind down my S corp that I had in the
Okay.
U.S. because the tax status is not the same in
Right.
Portugal, and so I had to reestablish myself as an independent worker, which that was a little bit of an emotional hit for me to be like,
Oh, I
well,
bet.
I had a corporation and now I'm an independent contractor again. It really makes no difference to my day to day. But
Sure,
it's
sure.
the way
Yeah.
the business needs to be structured here. There was a learning curve on sorting through all of that. But the business itself, I pride myself on having really long-standing relationships with my clients.
I saw that. Wow.
So, yeah,
Yeah, you
there's
do.
one client that I've had since I've had, like, this is our 12th year working together. It's an agency.
Wow.
And so, yeah. So those relationships were able to continue pretty seamlessly. I just let them
Oh, that's
know, hey,
good.
I'm going to be
Yeah.
offshore. My availability hours will change a bit. That was the one thing that was a challenge, was making myself available at a time that worked for me, that didn't make me feel like I was chained to my desk in the evening, but that also
Sure.
accommodated the fact that I have clients on the west coast of the US and they're 8 hours behind me.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Like me.
you know, yeah, sometimes you just have to make that compromise,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's worth it to keep those relationships.
Yeah. Definitely. So, what led to Portugal? I mean, there's a lot of choices, and your kids are in other locations, like in Sweden and the Netherlands, if I remember right. And
Yeah.
so they're in different locations, and you're in Portugal. What kind of fueled your decision making process around that?
Well, it had to do with a couple of things. One, my kids were like, you need to come to Europe, because I had been looking exclusively at Latin America. Because, I took Spanish in school. I spoke Spanish as a teenager and a young adult.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I can pick that back up. And I had been to Panama and
Right.
Costa Rica and different places in Mexico. And I thought, it'll be convenient. I'll be close to my kids. I didn't know they were going to leave the country, you know. Same time zone as my clients. But then the pandemic happened and things started to get a little unstable in some of those regions. And then my kids left the nest before I did. They were in Europe before me, and
Okay.
they were like, come over here. They were like, just come over here and hang out. They said, don't come to the same countries as us, because that would be kind of overbearing and weird. But
Don't live in my country.
right, exactly. Like, I'm going to
That's
be right
funny.
there with my face in the window in Sweden,
Right.
you know.
Right. There's not enough room in this country for both of us.
Exactly, right? So I was like, okay,
Uh,
all right, you've made your point. And it came down to Spain, which would have been the obvious choice because of
sure.
the
Sure.
language, at least, in parts of the country. But at the time, they didn't have a visa for people who were, I guess you would call it a digital nomad or a remote worker.
Right. Right. Yeah. Portugal
And
is really ahead of the curve on that. Yeah.
yeah, Portugal came out with theirs first, and it seemed really clear. And when I talked to immigration attorneys in Spain at the time, the answers were, it depends. And the timeline was unclear. And I'm like, well, I'm not uprooting my
Yeah.
life for it depends. And so Portugal had a clear process. I followed it. I got my visa. I came over. I got my permit. The bureaucracy here is something else. But as long as you can be comfortable with ambiguity
Right.
and are, I kind of treat it as sort of like an experiment, and
Sure.
how decompressed I can be from my expectations as an American of how things are going to
Yeah, I
operate.
know.
But it's been great. The language is really difficult, especially for people. It's not just me. People who learned Spanish first struggle
Interesting.
with
So
Portuguese.
Portuguese is that much harder, huh?
Portuguese is a lot harder. It's grammatically more complex. There's more vowel
Mm,
sounds. There are a lot more. Like, Spanish is great. Spanish is super logical. What you see
yeah.
is what you get. Portuguese, there's all these little unspoken elisions and pronunciation rules, and syllables get dropped, and consonants,
Just like
vowels
English.
get swallowed. Exactly, exactly. Only more so. And there's like a bazillion different levels of formality of address, and
Oh, sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's been an adventure, but I feel like I'm getting there. So,
That's cool.
yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah.
So let's talk a little more about the process you had to go through to set up your business entity there, because I know that was a little complex.
It was a little complex. And what I did, I found a CPA in Portugal, a chartered accountant. They
Okay.
do exist. I had heard people say, oh, there's no CPAs in Portugal. Yeah, there are. You have to search in Portuguese. But I found a great CPA. I said, here's my situation. What do I need to do? And he's like, we need to wind down this S Corp, get you set up as an independent
Hmm.
contractor. And it really wasn't that hard, and it wasn't super expensive. I chose to do it with a professional because I figured I was already dealing with enough bureaucracy with like
Sure.
immigration and stuff like that, and getting my apartment set up and learning things like you have to put salt in the dishwasher. So I was like, okay, you're
Oh,
going to be the guy who sets this up.
interesting.
But there is a resource that people can use if they're going to set up a solopreneur business here, and it's called Empresa na Hora, which means business in an hour. And it,
Oh, there we go.
oh, did I go away?
Yeah, it froze for a little bit. You were talking about salt in the dishwasher.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So salt in the dishwasher. And so I was like, okay, CPA, do your CPA thing. He set everything up, got it registered, sent me everything I need to do. And what I think is interesting, and then I'll get back to the other business setup alternative. What I think is interesting here is that as an independent worker, as a self-employed person, you file your invoices with your clients, and you also file them with the tax authority like every month.
Mm. Oh,
So there's
interesting.
not this huge, like, tax time is not the big opera that it is in the US. Even if you're filing quarterly or the
Uh-huh.
big return at the end of the year, it's just not the same, because they're keeping track of that as you go along.
Oh,
So,
huh. That's kind of cool.
yes, it's a little more work up front each month, but
Sure, yeah.
it makes it easier, which is nice because, of course, I still have to deal with American taxes as well.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, so the setup, once I found a person that I trusted and who I felt had really reliable information and impeccable credentials, that was pretty straightforward. You can also use a service called Empresa en Hora, which means business in
Mhm.
an hour. And you go, you register, you have to have your tax ID, you tell them your business, and they will give you a business entity in an hour as long
Wow.
as you don't care what it's called.
Right, right.
Because they just generate random kind of names. And so, like, my dog's daycare has an official business name that has absolutely nothing to do with their business. But, he was able to set it up really quickly, and he
Right.
doesn't market under that name. That's just like the
Sure,
government
sure.
name. And so it's a complex business environment in that it's different. It's just very different from the way things are done here.
Yeah.
I have no idea what it's like to do an entrepreneurial setup here. I've heard that there are a lot of layers to it.
Mhm.
But for me, it was once I figured out what I needed to do and found someone to help me execute it, it went pretty smoothly.
Okay, that's good.
So, yeah.
And you had mentioned something about the banking being a a bit of a challenge as an American.
Oh, absolutely. And this is not just unique to people who are self employed, it's any
Right.
American, honestly, really anywhere, because the US has some really stringent reporting requirements for
Yeah.
Americans who are overseas. FinCEN will investigate banks if they are not keeping up with that
Mhm,
data.
mhm.
And so there are some banks that just flat out will not do business with American customers
Right,
overseas
yeah.
because it's not their business model. They don't want that reporting requirement or the
Sure, the
extra
headache,
admin.
yeah.
So you do have to ask around. You do have to, I knew coming over because I had talked to people like a relocation consultant and other people who were living here, which banks would be the most hospitable to Americans. And so I was able to do that. At one point, I wanted to change banks. And I went to a new bank that was in my town, and I said, "Hey, do you serve Americans?" And the lady was like, "Come back Tuesday." And I was like, "Okay." I don't know if that meant the person who speaks really good English and likes to deal with Americans is here on Tuesday, or if that meant
Right, yeah.
the person who doesn't want to deal with Americans will be gone on Tuesday. I ended up not doing that, but I just thought it was interesting. And banking here, it's just different. You will get a debit card, you
Mhm.
will use it for everything. The peer to peer banking in Portugal is fantastic. You
Oh,
can,
cool.
yeah, it's really nice. The checking is not a thing here.
Oh,
Everything's
interesting.
done peer to peer. You can pay all of your bills through the peer to peer app or through your bank's connection to, it's called
Okay.
MBWay. And everything gets paid that way. And so it's really easy to like just pay invoices, pay your, whatever, and keep track of all the categories in there. So that's been really nice, but it is different.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And that all kicked in after 9/11, if I remember right. There
I
was a
think
lot of
so.
yeah. a lot of
Yeah.
concerns about money laundering and stuff like that. So,
Yeah. I think that and the
yeah.
Panama Papers really like people tightened the screws on all of that. So
Hmm.
it's something it's well worth researching before you get where you're going to
Sure.
figure
Yeah.
out which
Yeah.
banks you can do
Exactly.
business with.
Figure out where your money's going to be. It's kind of important.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the cultural differences because I think that's the people always focus on the language and the technical
Mhm.
stuff of, how do I set up a business and get a bank account and where am I going to
Mhm.
live? And then I think once you're there and you've been there a few months, then the cultural stuff starts kicking in like, oh, this is different. And I've got to
Yeah.
figure out how to assimilate into it.
Absolutely. So the first thing I had heard a lot of people who had, spent time in Europe on vacation, they were like, "Oh, you're not going to like Portugal. The people there are kind of cold. They're
Hmm.
very reserved or whatever." And I'm like, I kind of vibe with it. Someone described them as the Finns of
Yeah,
Southern Europe. They're not cold, they're just reserved. They're like,
sure.
you
Yeah.
know, that's just their culture. They're not going to be up in your face or whatever. But with that, there's an expectation that you are going to be aware of what's going on around you in terms of reading the
Hmm.
room. And that means, like, if you walk into a shop, you say good morning or good afternoon. If you don't, it's pretty rude.
Oh,
You know,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you acknowledge people when you walk into a space. Like, even the post office,
Okay.
people do that here. In Portugal, the little line, like the deli ticket thing, that's everywhere. You take your number and
Oh,
you wait. And then, they'll call you up when it's your turn. Even in a little tiny pharmacy that's like the size of my
right.
kitchen, you
And
go and you
you're the only
take your
person
number and
there.
you wait. But it's very much it's based on fairness. Like at the bus stop, it's not a scrum. You wait. If you were at the bus stop first, you get on first. And
I
people
kind of
do
like
notice
that.
that stuff. I do too. And I will say that there is more of, and I think you and I had talked about this before, about there's less bias against older people in
Right. Yeah.
Europe
Yeah.
in general. And when I lived in the city, when I lived in Coimbra, I was taking the bus to my language class, and the kids, there's no school buses, they just ride the city bus.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
so all these middle schoolers come pouring onto the bus, and, I'm standing, and there was an open seat, and this little boy grabbed a seat next to me. But then I saw an older lady get on, and one of the other kids, like, got up and gave her his seat
Oh,
without any
wow.
prompting from anybody. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And then
Huh.
the little boy who was sitting in the seat next to where I was standing stood up and offered me his seat. And I thought, you
Oh, that's
little,
so sweet.
I was like, I'm not old, but my back was
Oh,
killing me. So I was like, thank you so much. I was like, am I? Oh, never mind. This is great. This is awesome. So there's very much, and there's, priority attendance for the elderly, for pregnant women or people with small children. Like they can ask to cut the line and it's not a big deal.
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's just very different. But there's also with that, there's very much a culture of respect and
Hmm.
face saving. And so like, and it's a little bit, it's hierarchical in some ways. And so you
Mm-hmm.
have to know, like when I got my mortgage, they were like, we'll send you a debit card. And I needed this thing to do anything.
Sure.
And it didn't arrive and it didn't arrive. And I went to my local branch and they're like, we don't know anything about it because you opened it at a different branch. And so finally, I talked to my language teacher. She's like, have you written the lady that you dealt with a letter? And I was like, what now? She goes, yeah, you need to email this woman and you need to like use the correct form of address. And so, which is like excelentissima or estimado or excellentissima or something like that. Very flowery, very formal in
Yeah.
a way that
Yeah.
we wouldn't do in the US. It'd be like, hey, where's my card? But I like wrote her this letter. I said, hey, I wanted to let you know that you recommended I take language classes, and because she had been honestly kind of a scold, and and I've started doing this, and so I'm practicing my Portuguese here, and blah blah blah. Oh, and by the way, my card still hasn't arrived. Came 2 days later.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's
Okay.
just recognizing people and giving
Sure.
them
Yeah.
their credit and showing that you respect their role in whatever process you're involved in works
Yeah.
wonders. The kind of, I guess, customer is always right attitude is not really a thing here. It's just, it's two people interacting with each other and
Right.
everybody
Yeah.
needs to be cool. And that's another thing I like about Portugal is like everything is calma, calma, calma. Like even if something not great is happening, people tend to try to like just
Oh, take the
return to
temperature
a,
down.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So,
Kind of sounds like a place I might enjoy. I haven't been to Portugal. I've been to Spain
yeah,
numerous times, but I haven't been to Portugal. I should check
I
it out.
highly recommend it.
I
Yeah,
like what I'm hearing, actually.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. How has it been changing you? You've been there long enough that it's probably starting to change a lot of things about how you behave and speak. And I see that like my in-laws are in Germany and they've been there for, oh, wow, 5, 6 years, and they're changing. Like they came to visit this year and, just the way they were talking and behaving, I was like, "Oh, you're definitely changing from living in Germany for so long."
Yeah, yeah. I would have never, like, to me, the idea of walking into a shop and being like, hey, like greeting everyone in the
Hello.
store, people would be like, what's wrong with her? You know, in the
Right,
US, you
right.
wouldn't do that. But now that just feels so natural to me that there's that, there's not tipping. Tipping culture is
Mhm.
not really a thing here. And it's a lot of people don't like it. They're like, please don't bring tipping culture here because
Yeah,
we
yeah,
don't want to
once it
start
starts.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that. And I knew coming over here, I tend to be a very like wired, energetic, super impatient person. Like I always want to get on to the next thing. And so, and I know it's not good, right? That's like
Right,
not
yeah.
good for your
Very
health. And
American, yeah.
so, yeah, I was like, what happens if I put myself in an environment where that's actually like not rewarded, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, yeah.
And because I was like, what if I structure the environment in a way that I have to chill out? And it has
Imagine that.
been amazing, right? Yeah. Oh, eons ago, I did Montessori like early childhood training, and they're like, structure the environment for the behavior you want. And so I'm
Sure,
like, well, I'll
yeah.
just move somewhere where, you just take a number and wait. And the sky didn't fall.
Right,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
the
yeah.
wheels still turn. My overall health is better. I feel like my attitude toward just like stuff is better. And I am still enthusiastic and excited about things, but I don't have that background level of stress that I constantly have to be either
The time
producing or
pressure.
planning the next
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, that time
Mhm.
pressure. So, I mean, yeah, there are times when
Yeah.
it's super frustrating. You know, it'll take a while, but I can just be like, okay, this is frustrating. It's not going to kill me to be frustrated for a while.
Right, right,
Yeah,
exactly.
right. So,
It's funny. I mean, I grew up in a very small farm town, and then I spent much of my life in big cities like Houston, Bay Area, and then I'm back in a
yeah.
small community.
Hmm.
And a lot of what you're describing reminds me of the small community thing. Like I go to downtown businesses and they all say hi and talk to you and they mean it. They're like, it's not fake.
Yeah.
They know you, they recognize you, and so you have conversations and talk. And the
Hmm.
concept of rushing, although there's still just the way people drive. I always say it's like unless you're rushing to do emergency cardiac surgery, where are you going in such a hurry on this little road? It's like, come on, nothing's that
Right.
important.
Yeah.
So I
Oh, well,
appreciate that pace, that slowing down.
yeah. Now, Portuguese drivers, totally different behind the wheel.
Oh, really?
Totally different behind the wheel. Like the first time I started driving here, I was like, why is everyone tailgating me? You know, I'm
Oh,
going the speed limit. And it's just, that's how they do. That's just, it's nothing. They're not trying to be aggressive. They're just drafting. You know,
they
that's
just
just
keep it
like,
close.
we're all in this
It's
together.
cozy.
And, you know, so yeah, driving, I just think you put humans in a car and something happens. I don't think it matters
That
where
does.
you are
It
in the
is true.
world.
It is true. People change behavior once they're inside a car. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. So how? Well, there's a couple of things I'm interested in. I mean, one is this difference in work culture and identity, and the concept of what we have so much here in
Hmm.
America, and also in some of the Asian working cultures of just extreme burnout, like working way too much and too hard.
Hmm.
And now that you're in this some different mode, and you still have American clients, are you seeing any kind of friction between their sense of urgency with American corporations are always like, we need it tomorrow, 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 tomorrow. And you're like,
Yeah.
hey, it's no big problem. Slow down.
Well, I had kind of, as part of my ongoing goal of like just taking it down a notch for myself,
Right.
A while back, like well before I left the US, I had instituted some pretty stringent rush fees on my
Good,
work
good.
because
Exactly.
it was getting to a point, especially when I still had children in the home, it
Sure.
was
Yeah.
getting to be too much. And it was also expensive to have to, like,
Yeah.
hire
Drop
people to take over
everything.
stuff so that
Hmm.
I could turn these projects around. And so I had already kind of set that boundary for me. What I have noticed though is that even though I think I'm working at a pretty chill pace, people here are like, oh, it's, Saint Whatever's Day. Let's go to the beach. And I'm like, oh, I'm working today. And they're like, you should quit that job. They're like, they're making you
You're
work on a holiday. And I'm like, but
yeah.
it's not a holiday to them. And so one of the things that I'm trying to do this year, I hadn't done it before, is in order to maintain my friendships with people who were here and doing things on
Right.
Portuguese
Yeah.
holidays, I'm taking some of those holidays this year
Good.
so
Good,
that I
good,
don't
good.
miss out on that stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, I feel like it's been okay. It's been, how do I want to put it? I don't know. It's given me a perspective on work that I don't necessarily, how do I want to say it? I don't necessarily talk about it with my American friends who are still working because it
Sure, sure.
seems like nobody
Must be
wants to hear
nice.
that. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
And I mean,
yeah.
Portugal does have its challenges. Salaries here are really low. There's a trade-off.
Sure. Yeah, there is. There is.
You ask Portuguese people, and they do work hard, but salaries are among the lowest on average in Europe. So there are definitely trade-offs. But for me, just the idea that work is not the center of the universe, that it doesn't define you. I've had local friends who I've known for like months, years, and it'll be like 5, 6 months in, and the subject just comes up naturally of, oh, hey, what do you do for a living?
You're right.
I have a friend whose husband just retired, and I have no idea what he retired from.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Who cares?
I
He
kinda
doesn't
like
talk
that
about
too.
it. So, he's like, I'm retired now. Meh. So it's interesting to see how people do their job and they take pride in their work, but it's just
Right.
work, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like their
Very
family and their
different.
friends.
Very different than
It's
here.
just, yeah, exactly.
Very first thing is, "What do you do? What do you do for a living?"
Yeah, that
Everybody's
would
trying to
be,
compartmentalize you, like, "What do you do and how should I treat you?" It's like, "Yeah, okay. All right."
yeah, yeah, that's not a thing here. It's like you give people respect based on the fact that they're people and they're members of your community.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so
Oh, I like that so much.
yeah.
Yeah, it's, the time thing is interesting. So I left corporate in 2010,
Mhm.
and it took many, many years to kind of let go of the rush, 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 busy, busy, busy. I should always be working. And it's only, I think, in the past year where I've kind of kicked in, like, what am I rushing for? It's like, it's okay to
Right.
live. It's okay to
Yeah.
just live and not always be producing. And it's getting rid of a lifetime of programming. It's hard.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I started using my calendar, as you mentioned that, to essentially I do time blocking and say, yeah, I'm not going to be available during these 2 weeks. It's holiday. I have friends here. I just block it. It's like you can't schedule me. I'm not going to work, and I have to do that. I think because it's everything creeps in like, oh, just one meeting with me, just this meeting, or just work on this. And I found
Yep.
that one turns into two, turns into 10, and it's like, okay, I'm
Hmm.
just going to have to be really rigid and block my calendar and just start to live life, which it's a new experience. It's a really new experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I've been guilty of that, especially when I first started working as an independent contractor in the US. I would take meetings on vacation, I would check email.
Oh yeah.
And the thing
Yeah.
is, then there's always the follow up you have to do, or making
Yep.
notes, or logging something else in your calendar. And then suddenly you've worked half a day. And here, like, and France is really known for this, for people taking August off. But
Right.
like end of August, beginning of September in Portugal, you might go to your favorite restaurant and there's a handwritten note taped to the inside of the door. It's like, hey,
Exactly.
we're on vacation until like 2, 3 weeks from now. And it's not,
Oh,
there's
I
no
like it.
apology for it. It's just like, yeah,
No,
our
no.
staff is resting. That's the term they use. So our staff can rest.
Oh, I like that.
And yeah,
I
And that's
encountered
just,
that here. My kids live in Juneau, Alaska, very
mhm.
remote city, hard to
Oh,
get
wow.
to. And
Yeah.
it's when there's nice weather, it's rare when it's really nice. And people do that. They write a note and they say, "We went fishing," and they just close.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
like, "Yep, we're not here," or "We're having a
Mhm.
party today for the staff," and it's a little note on the door and they're closed. It's
Nice.
like, as a tourist or whoever comes, you're like, "Oh, I can't believe this." But the people that live there is like, you got to understand, when there's sun, you
Yeah.
disappear and you go enjoy the sun. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in my town, there's a lot of small businesses, and you might go, I mean, everybody closes for lunch. Like the civil defense siren goes off Monday through Friday at 1 p.m., and that's lunch.
That's like
And
my
you can
farm
see
town.
doors close all the way down the main road as people are, and they do, they take their 2 hours.
Nice,
And
nice.
it's really nice. And sometimes you'll go and it's not lunch, and you'll think they must be open, and they'll have a sign taped to the door that says, Volto ja, I'll be back.
Sometime.
Yeah, exactly, when they're done with whatever they're doing. So, yeah. And these places stay in business. The sky does
Yeah,
not fall. So,
I love it. I love
yeah.
it. So let's talk a little bit about the community you've been building and the advice you've been sharing, because you went through all this and realized it's hard to get a straight answer online, and there's a lot of
It
misleading
really is.
information online. So
Yeah.
what have you been doing, and the lessons that you're sharing with people?
So, what I did after I got here, well, first of all, when I was really researching the stuff that I needed to know for Portugal, the gold standard is to use whatever government resources are available. But
Mhm.
because that's the official stuff, but just like anything else in life, there's the theory and there's the practice,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And especially in a country where not everything is digitized and standardized, you
Mhm.
have like maybe different consulates are interpreting visa requirements one way versus another way.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes bureaucrats have some leeway in how they want to decide things. And so you start, talking to other people online who've been through the same thing. I had a really good friend who she and her husband had moved from the Bay Area a couple of years before I did. And so she was kind of like my mentor for figuring things out. And she steered
Okay.
me toward a lot of groups. My problem with a lot of the groups, even the really helpful ones like on Facebook, is that it's like a fire hose of information.
Yeah. Yeah.
You might have a piece of like a post with like 300 comments, so there's lots of conflicting information
Sure. Yeah.
because everybody has to have their say whether they know what they're talking about or not.
Yes.
Or they heard one thing and they want to see if it's true, and then suddenly you've got five versions of the same whatever
Right.
idea going
Right.
on. And also, social media is just not designed to be an information repository. That's not what it's for.
No, it's very
And
hard to
so,
search. Yeah.
I have an incredible respect and gratitude for the people who built those communities and run them online. But for me, as a person who struggles to focus anyway, and who was also like running a business and raising kids, it was really, really difficult to extract the
Mhm.
information I needed from some of these groups. And then to go through and use my like decades old fact checker training to actually make sure that it was correct,
Right.
all with the understanding that depending on what kind of day a bureaucrat was having, it might change.
Exactly.
So there was all that. And then, of course, there's just like stuff online that's outdated. People put up a website and then they don't update it when requirements
Yeah.
change. And people started asking me, well, how did you do it? You did it, your kids did it. How did you do it? And I thought, I just need to put all this stuff in one place, especially because, I had 10 years. My kids had specific reasons they were going. Nobody was in a particular hurry, but for a lot of people right now, that might not be the case anymore. And
Right.
they
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
necessarily have the time or I guess, the emotional bandwidth right now to be sorting through, a library of information that's strewn all over the floor in
Right.
digital
Yeah.
terms, when what they really need is just where can I go? How can I get there? How will I support myself? And when can I get it done?
Right.
So that's the
Yeah.
goal of the We're Moving to Europe community.
You have a bit of a framework that you recommend, right? Where it's like understand visa requirements. Don't just dive into a country without actually exploring, doing a scouting mission and knowing what you're
Yeah,
getting into. Yeah.
absolutely. Visa requirements are important. I actually like to start people by saying, what are your non negotiables? And I don't
Mhm.
mean things like the weather. Because if you really need to leave, or if you really want to
Right.
rebuild your
Yeah.
life, unless you break out in hives in the sun or, have
Right.
serious
Yeah.
seasonal depression, the weather you can adapt. But things like, am I on a medication that I can only get in the United States?
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I a wheelchair user who may not be able to live in an area that was built before accessibility
It's
was
all
a thing?
cobblestones and yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Things like that. What kind of income do I need? Will I need a place
Hmm.
where I can be
Hmm.
on a remote visa, a remote worker visa, or a retirement visa? And so figuring out those non-negotiables first, do I need trans health care? Is that going to be
Right.
available? Is it an LGBTQ friendly country? Things like that.
Yeah. And that's important. Yeah.
It's very important. What's the racial climate like? Is there hostility
Hmm.
toward people of
Hmm.
color? Those are the things that you need to define that first. Because what I see happening is a lot of people will fall in love with the idea of a country, or they will have a list of places where they could go that are really probably deeply unsuitable for them. But they're trying, you get into this idea of like,
Yeah.
well, I know about this, so I'm going to try to make it work.
Right.
And I'm like,
Right. Yeah.
you kind of need to start with yourself a little bit
Yeah.
and define what you need. And then you need to question your assumptions ruthlessly. Because
Hmm.
I see people all the time, they're like, well, I want to move to northern Portugal because it's 300 days of sun a year. And I'm like, I'm in central Portugal. We don't get as much rain as northern Portugal, but we get more than Dublin, Ireland every year.
That's funny.
So,
Which you wouldn't
yeah,
expect. Yeah.
you wouldn't expect it. And people move here thinking it's going to be 300 days of sun. Well, in the
Right.
southern part of the
Right.
country, yes, absolutely.
Right.
The further north you go, no. And so there's things like that. I've had friends who are part of the queer community who are like, well, I would love to move to Spain, but I'm assuming that because it's a Catholic country, that it's not
Hmm.
friendly to gay, lesbian, and transgender people. And I'm like, actually, the Iberian Peninsula ranks really high
Oh,
for
interesting. Yeah.
LGBTQ friendliness. Like there's a resource called the Rainbow Map where you can see every
Mm,
country in
okay.
Europe ranked on a bunch of different criteria. It breaks down the data for you. And Portugal and Spain are pretty high up there. It's part of that, they're culturally Catholic, but there's also this very live and let live attitude. They're not,
That's
it's the
cool.
same reason
Yeah.
you can buy vodka at the grocery store at 8 in the morning on a Sunday. It's like
They're
that's
like,
between
if you
you
want to,
and yeah, exactly. They're like, we're staying
you're an
out of it.
adult. Yeah.
Exactly. So I would say question your assumptions so that you don't limit yourself or pick a place that's unsuitable. And then, sorry, can you hear my dog barking in the background?
Oh, here.
Yeah. Hang on. Let me go. Okay. I'm gonna keep talking though. So,
Okay.
and then once you know what your must-haves are, and you've interrogated your assumptions so that you're not making decisions based on bad data, then you go and look at where you can get a visa, and then
Okay.
find the
Yeah.
places that line up with your needs. And you're not going to automatically rule out anything based on
Right.
flawed
Right.
assumptions. And the visa part is really difficult because it's not standardized between countries.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
here's an example that is probably relevant to your audience. The entrepreneur visa in one country can mean you're a self-employed business owner, right? You're
Right.
somebody
Yeah.
like me who does freelance contract work. In another country, like say in Denmark, if you want to be an entrepreneur and go on that kind of visa there, you have to present a business plan to a national board that's going to review it. And if you're one of the
Wow.
top seven, they approve like 70, I think, a year, and
Oh,
that's it.
that's it.
And in
Wow.
yeah, and in some countries, it has to be an idea that's not already in the market, and you
Oh,
have to fund it
interesting.
at a certain level and be prepared to hire a certain number of local people.
That's what I've
So,
heard. Yeah. You got to hire
yes.
people. Yeah. Yeah.
And then in some people, it's like, oh, you're an entrepreneur because you have like a dog grooming business.
Right.
So you can't assume that the terminology is standardized from country to country. So you really do
Yeah.
have to look
Yeah.
at all this stuff. And that's part of what we've been doing in the community. It's like compiling a big database of all this stuff that's
Oh, cool.
relevant for
Okay.
Americans. And it's a lot. It's a lot.
Sure. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
So where can people find you and learn about this and get involved, join, work with you?
The community that we have is on the school platform. I don't know if you're familiar with
Oh
that.
yeah,
It's,
yeah.
yeah,
SKOOL.
SKOOL. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're moving to Europe. And if people are, you can like try it out for 7 days or whatever. If people are not interested in committing to that, I have a Substack under the same name, We're Moving to Europe, where people can just
Okay.
kind of like follow along about things that I've learned. And then if they decide that they're interested in really seriously pursuing, like charting their own path,
Right.
finding out a way that works for them, then that's the school community is the option for them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And for those listening, I'll share links in the show notes so that you can find Casey. And yeah, the Substack stories are fantastic. They're really interesting and different. It's
Thanks.
like, oh, that's very different than here. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
fun to read.
Excellent. I'm glad. That makes me glad. I love sharing those stories. So,
Well, this has been fantastic, Casey. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's been a fun talk. Thanks.
Until next time, I wish you the best of luck with building the business of your dreams.